In the heart of a snowstorm, a little girl and her German shepherd spotted a police car buried in the snow. Inside, an officer lay unconscious. No one else was around. What the little girl and her loyal dog did next would leave the entire town stunned forever. Before we start, make sure to hit like, share, and subscribe. And really, I'm curious, where are you watching from? Drop your country name in the comments. I love seeing how far our stories travel. The mountains groaned under the weight of winter. Snow fell in thick, heavy sheets, swallowing the road, the fences, even the rooftops of cabins buried deep in the valley. The world had turned white and silent, except for the howling wind that cut through the air like a warning. Emma, a small girl wrapped in a red coat 2 sizes too big, trudged through the drifts with her German shepherd Max at her side. Every step was a struggle, her boots sinking deep, but she pushed on, clutching Max's fur whenever the wind threatened to topple her. The storm had rolled in faster than anyone expected. By the time Emma and Max had left her grandmother's cabin, the sky had already turned a steel gray, and snowflakes the size of coins stung her cheeks. The trail that once seemed familiar now looked foreign, every landmark buried under the blizzard's fury. Max barked into the wind, his body tense, ears twitching at sounds Emma couldn't hear. She leaned down, whispering, "It's okay, boy. We'll make it home." But even she didn't believe her words. Then through the wall of snow, Max froze. His growl rose low and steady, his golden eyes fixed on a shape ahead. Emma squinted through the whiteout. What she saw made her heart pound. A police car, half buried, its windshield spiderwebbed with cracks. Emma's breath caught as she stumbled closer, snow crunching beneath her boots. The police car sat at an awkward angle, its nose buried in a drift. Red and blue lights, faintly flickering beneath a layer of ice. The windshield was cracked, a spiderweb of glass from an unseen impact. Max barked furiously, circling the vehicle, his paws scratching at the frozen metal. Emma wiped her mitten across the driver's window, clearing just enough frost to peer. Inside, her stomach dropped. Slumped against the seat was an officer, his head resting limply on his shoulder. His lips were pale, his eyes closed, his breath shallow, or maybe not there at all. Emma gasped, banging her fists against the glass. "Mister, wake up, please wake up!" Her voice cracked, lost in the storm. No answer, no movement, just the hollow stillness of the snowstorm pressing in on all sides. Emma's eyes filled with tears. She was only a child, powerless against the cold and the locked doors. But Max wouldn't give up. His growls turned into sharp, frantic barks, as if commanding her not to lose hope. For Emma, fear became determination. She pressed harder against the glass. Somehow, some way, she had to save him. Emma's small fists pounded the glass until her knuckles throbbed beneath her mittens. "Please, please wake up," she sobbed, her voice trembling in the freezing air. Inside, the officer didn't move, his face pale, a thin line of blood trickling from his forehead where the windshield had shattered. Max clawed at the snow around the door, digging furiously as if brute force could free the man trapped inside. His barks echoed through the storm, desperate and demanding, but the wind swallowed the sound before it could carry far. Emma tried the handle, frozen stiff. She yanked again and again, her body shaking more from fear than cold. Finally, she pressed her forehead to the glass, her breath fogging the tiny clear spot she had made earlier. "Don't die," she whispered. "Please don't die." The storm answered with silence. Panic surged through her chest, but Max refused to stop. He bounded to the back of the car, leaping onto the trunk, paws scratching, nose pressed against the seams. He barked, again, sharp and commanding, then turned toward Emma. She understood. If she couldn't break in, they had to get help. But in a blizzard like this, who would hear them? Emma wrapped her arms around Max's neck, tears freezing on her cheeks. "Find someone, boy," she said. "Please, before it's too late." Max bolted into the storm, his powerful frame cutting through the snow like a shadow. Emma stumbled after him, clutching her coat tight, her legs burning with every step. The blizzard swallowed the road ahead, but Max seemed certain, barking into the night, demanding anyone answer. They reached the edge of a narrow lane where faint lantern light flickered through the storm. A pair of travelers huddled around a horse-drawn sled, trying to shield themselves from the wind. Max darted toward them, barking frantically, circling, in wild loops before sprinting back toward Emma, then returning again as if to pull them along. The men frowned. "What's wrong with that mutt?" one muttered. But then they noticed Emma, her red coat, her tear-streaked face, her trembling voice crying, "Please, a policeman! He's trapped in his car." For a heartbeat, the men hesitated, glancing at each other, weighing risk against comfort. Then Max lunged forward, grabbing one man's sleeve with his teeth, not to hurt but to drag. His urgency was undeniable. The travelers exchanged a look, then nodded grimly. "Show us," one said. Emma's heart leapt. Relief and fear tangled inside her chest as she pointed back into the storm. "This way, hurry!" Max bounded ahead, leading the way through the whiteout. The fight for help was no longer hers alone. Others had finally decided to follow. The storm howled as Emma led the men back down the buried road. Max bounded ahead, his bark slicing through the night until the half-buried police car emerged from the snow like a ghost. The travelers froze at the sight, eyes widening at the shattered windshield and the still figure slumped inside. Without hesitation, one man grabbed a metal bar from the sled. He swung hard at the glass. The first strike cracked it deeper. The second shattered it completely. Cold air rushed into the car as shards scattered across the snow. Emma covered her face, peeking through trembling fingers as Max leapt forward, pawing at the door, whining for them to hurry. Together they dragged the officer out, his body limp, breath shallow but still there. His pulse was weak, his uniform stiff with blood and frost. "He's alive," one man muttered. Relief surged through Emma, her tears blurring the sight of the shepherd pressed close, guarding the officer as though he were his own. They wrapped the man in blankets, loading him onto the sled. Emma climbed beside him, Max refusing to leave his side. The travelers cracked the reins, the horse straining forward. The snow swallowed their tracks as they pulled away, carrying with them not just a wounded officer but the fragile hope that he might live to tell what happened on that frozen night. By morning, word had spread faster than the storm itself. A little girl and her dog had found a crashed police car and pulled an officer back from the edge of death. The townsfolk who had once hidden behind locked doors now gathered at the hospital, murmuring in disbelief. Inside, Emma sat quietly in a chair, her red coat draped across her lap. Max lay at her feet, his head resting against the officer's hospital bed. Machines beeped steadily, proof that life still clung stubbornly to the man who had nearly been lost to the snow. When the officer finally stirred, his eyes fluttering open, the first thing he saw was the child and the shepherd, who had refused to give up on him. His lips cracked into the faintest smile. "You saved me," he whispered. The story swept through the town like wildfire. Newspapers called it a miracle in the snow. Reporters wanted Emma's words, but she only pointed to Max. "He's the real hero," she said softly. Neighbors who once ignored the storm now spoke of courage, loyalty, and the bond between a child and her dog. And as Emma walked home with Max trotting proudly at her side, the town carried with them a lesson they would never forget. Sometimes the smallest voices and the fiercest barks are the ones that save us all.